As you may know, one of the things we want to do in GIS is actually add data to our shapefile. Here I've got census tracts in the Denver urban area, and I want to go and add census data to that shapefile so that I can explore additional variables. I want to show you how to access that data and download it and prepare it for GIS using Social Explorer. Normally we would have used American Fact Finder from the US Census Bureau, but the way that data downloads in recent years has become a lot more complex or unnecessarily complex. So I actually find Social Explorer easier. So I want you to go to the Tut Library's website on CC's page and go down to Access Our Databases and click on A to Z title or subject. Then click on S and scroll down to Social Explorer. Now you'll go to Tables, and we're going to select American Community Surveys. Now this isn't the standard decennial census which happens every 10 years. What this is it's based on the American Community Survey, which is run annually, but it's a sample of the US population. And what the Census Bureau does is aggregates multiple years of the ACS in order to develop estimates. Okay, so we're going to use the American Community Survey 2011-2015 5-year estimates. We'll begin a report. The first thing you'll need to do is select a geographic type. Now this is a very simple decision. You go back, what is the shapefile, the data set that you want to add variables to? I've got census tracts, and so I'll select census tract. Again, if your shapefile was counties or if it was states, you would make those selections. Since the Denver tracts are all in the state of Colorado, I'll select the state of Colorado. I'm going to ignore the county and just select all census tracts in Colorado. Now that's going to get more tract data than I need, obviously, but that's fine because when I join it, only those tracts that have corresponding data will retain that information. So I'm going to hit Add. Now if you're ever in a situation where your shapefile spans more than 2 states, you'll have to go back up at this point and select a different state and add those additional tracts or counties or whatever you're doing. Okay, we're going to go to Proceed to Tables. And here's where you select your variables. And I encourage you to scroll through here and look at what's possible. I'm just going to pick out a few standard ones here. First one is Hispanic or Latino by race, and hit Add. And then we'll go down to T57, median household income, hit Add. And we're going to add T118, ratio of income in 2015 to poverty level, summarized. Add. So there's our selections, and we can show results. Again, this gives you a sense of what the data looks like. Each column here is a census tract, so here's the total population, the number of those who are not Hispanic or Latino, and the number of those who are white. So that's white non-Hispanic, and then you can see the Hispanic population down here. Median household income, it's a single value. It's the point at which half the households make more and half make less. And then the ratio of income to the poverty level. This is the population for whom the poverty status is determined. It's not always equivalent to the population total because sometimes we don't know the poverty status of everybody. And of those, this is the number that is below the poverty line. Okay, so we're going to go back up here and go to Data Download. And before we select Census Tract Data CSV, we're going to select these 2 boxes. I want the output column labels in the first row and the output percents. Okay, now go ahead and select the Census Tract Data CSV. It downloads as a CSV file. You open that up. Now we need to clean this up. You'll notice that our data is way across here to the right, but we need to clean this up. One of the things I want you to notice is there's a FIPS column, and if I put the cursor between A and B and double click, it'll expand to the extent necessary. See that that's a number that looks very similar to the FIPS that was in our shapefile, and in fact that's the variable that will be used to collate these rows of data to the appropriate tract. Now in terms of cleaning this up, we don't actually need row 2, so I'm going to put my cursor over row 2 and right click, delete. Okay, and we also don't need a lot of these other columns here. So I'm going to put the cursor over B, left click and hold, drag across, and delete those columns. Okay. Now one of the things I like to do in terms of cleaning this up is simply put the cursor in the cell right there, and I can see that it's total population. And I'm just going to start renaming these variables something with a short, sweet name. No weird symbols or spaces or anything like that. So I'm going to call this pop tote, and then I'm just going to tab. This is the not Hispanic or Latino population. Actually not going to use that, so I'm just going to tab again. Now here's the white not Hispanic population. I'm going to label that white NH, tab, black NH, tab, and so on. Now you can keep any of these that you wish. I'm just going to keep some of them. I'm going to go over here. Here's Hispanic or Latino. I'll label that Latino. Okay. Now if we keep tabbing, we get to the percentages. So you'll notice now I'm over here in the percent total population not Hispanic white alone. I'm going to label that P white NH. Here's P black NH. Tab, keep tabbing. Here's P Latino, and so on. I'm going to keep tabbing. Now again, you could have kept more of those categories or variables if you wanted. I'm just doing a quick job here. Now I've gotten to median household income. I'm going to call that MHI, tab. Here's the population for whom the poverty status is determined. We'll call that POV-STAT. Next one over is under 1, doing poorly. They're impoverished, so I'm going to call that POV-below. And I'm not going to deal with these other columns, so I'm going to keep tabbing until I get to the percentages. And there's the one that's the percent of impoverished. So I'm going to call that PPOV. Okay, so I've renamed the variables that I want. I want to go through and get rid of all the columns that I'm actually not going to use. So I'll just highlight column C, go over here, highlight column, all the ones I'm not using. I'll just do some of these at a time. I'm going to right click and delete. I'm going to left click and hold. Make sure you're not accidentally deleting something you want to keep. And you could also delete these as you go along so you don't have to go and hunt through to find everything. Okay. One last thing, I often like to just rename this join ID rather than FIPS. It's just a personal preference. You can name it whatever. And I also like to rename the sheet. So I'm going to call this ACS CO tracks. Okay. And we're going to file, and we're going to save as, and you'll save it to whatever folder you want to save it to. I'm going to go ahead and save it to a particular folder here. And I want you to save it as an Excel 97 2003 workbook. That particular format is always reliable in GIS. And we'll just call this ACS CO tracks and hit save. Okay. And as soon as you're done saving, you need to close down the Excel file because GIS won't allow you to bring that data in if it's open in another software program. So that's how you go ahead and access, download, and prepare data for inclusion in GIS. Now I'll actually very quickly show you how we can bring that data and join it into our shapefile. So you go back to GIS, you'd go to Add Data, you'd go navigate to where you saved it, and here I called mine ACS CO tracks. You don't want the Excel file, you want the sheet inside. So you double click on it, and then you select the sheet, and it adds. And if I right click and open it, you can see there's the join ID and everything, all the variables. Now you always want to join that data to the shapefile. So to do that, you want to right click on your shapefile. So I'm going to right click, joins and relates, join. And what you have to do with this particular window, we're going to join attributes from another table, is in the shapefile, what's the variable that you want to use that's going to correspond with join ID, because those are the common numbers and it'll know how to collate the data. So you would think FIPS, but if I do that, notice that it's selecting the sheet, but it's not recognizing any variables. The problem is FIPS is in text format. So what we need to do is actually, before we join, we're going to cancel here. We need to actually open up the attribute table. And in the top left, what we need to do is reproduce FIPS, but we need to turn it into a numeric format. So we're going to do that little drop down, and we're going to add a field. And I'm just going to call it FIPS2. And type, we're going to have to put to double. Okay. And what that did, again, just drop down, add a field. What that did, if we scroll across, gave me another column, just started with everybody at 0, called FIPS2. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on FIPS2 and then right click and do field calculator. Go ahead and hit yes. And it says FIPS2 equals what? And I'm just going to double click FIPS. So FIPS2 is going to equal FIPS. But in the process, notice that it's going to create a number, not a string or a text. There, it completed it. So now I have a FIPS number that I'll be able to match with the numeric-based join ID number I got from the Social Explorer. So again, to join this data now, we'd right-click on our shapefile, joins and relates. Now again, we're not going to use FIPS. We'll have to scroll down and use FIPS2. It's reading the sheet. It's reading join ID now. Hit OK. And all of that data is now joined at the end. And you can see how these numbers match up. Now, even though it's joined, it's considered a soft join. It's precarious, and it could be displaced if we do other things in GIS. So one of the things I like to do, as soon as I join data from another table, is to bake that joined data in there. So all you do is you simply right-click on that shapefile, data, and export that data. And it just bakes that data in there. So I'm just going to call this den bake. Go ahead and add. And again, it looks like the same as that other shapefile. It's just that I know that this data is now firmly embedded in that shapefile. So that's how you access, download, prepare, and join census data to a shapefile.